Hello everyone. I'm making this video simply because I can, and I'm hoping that it's going to annoy a certain section of my audience, as an earlier video that I put up on the subject of the war in the Ukraine seems to have done. So I want to continue in that vein. And I'm going to have a bit of a ramble, and haven't got this planned in any way. Excuse me, sorry. Had to blue tack this down in order to keep it from curling up. Yeah, I want to just ramble, see where my thoughts take me, and just express a few more of my sentiments and so on, and opinions. Yeah, the reason I got this out is that I was out in my garden for the first time in a long time last week, and just basically trying to clear some of the damage that Storm Eunice wrecked. For some reason my garden seems to have been, all the neighbouring gardens seem to have got away with it, but my shed was completely destroyed. It's on its side, or part of it, the top half is on its side, on the opposite side of the garden to where it belongs. The contents of the shed scattered all around the garden, the fences have come down. And it's all kind of complicated by the fact that I haven't really been tending my garden for the last couple of years due to kind of other issues taking priority, and so all the overgrown parts had sort of were leaning over and so on. It was difficult to even get around the garden, so I had to kind of try and clear some of the vegetation and so on before I can begin to tackle all the damage. And of course, that is, it was stressing me out a little bit. And I actually found, doing the manual labour and that, in a way, quite restorative. But it made me think, with the war in the Ukraine going on at the moment, about how my problems are tiny in comparison. But I started off by thinking that what you're looking at is a map of the city of Plymouth, and it's an illustration of where every bomb that was dropped on Plymouth in the Second World War fell. And there's an area here where there doesn't appear to be any bomb damage, and that's because this is all this area here is the naval dockyard. And the damage that the Germans did to the the sort of naval area of the city was intentionally kind of removed from this map, simply so that they couldn't see how, whether their bombing had been affected. But you can see quite clearly that it wasn't just a sort of strategic strike, a precision strike on the dockyard. All the civilian area of Plymouth was obliterated. The centre of the town was almost completely destroyed and rebuilt after the war. But the reason I mention this in regard to my gardening efforts was that I live in a very small cul-de-sac. There are only 12 addresses in the cul-de-sac, and yet there are 8 black dots on my cul-de-sac alone. So it gives you some impression of the intensity of the bombing that Plymouth suffered during the war, but also how I'm getting stressed out about the wreckage in my garden, but if I'd lived here during the Second World War, I would have had a lot more to worry about. And in fact, you can still see signs of where some of the houses were repaired and restored to this day. And then, of course, as I say, it pales into nothing in comparison to the awful scenes that are appearing on the news every day now, coming from Mariupol in particular. It's just appalling. But in my previous video on this topic, I was trying to kind of describe a little bit of my understanding of complexity theory and how it links into so many issues and of everyday life and history and politics and everything. And before I go any further, I did want to sort of just add a little addenda to that video, in that I did give the impression, I think, and Dan Booman kind of corrected me and reminded me of a point that I'd failed to make, is that sometimes the changes that happen inside complex organisations and systems don't all necessarily have to be negative changes. In fact, there are as many positive changes as there are negative. The analogy of the sand pile begins to kind of fall down a little bit in this respect now, that you always think of avalanches as being downward and calamitous, but in a complex system you can have changes for the good as well. So as Dan quite correctly pointed out, there are, although the world has changed now and will never be the same again, that change might turn out to be for the better. There might be good things that come out of this. And of course, when you look at the world's troubles, the war in the Ukraine now, but we've had COVID, we've had, there's ongoing issue of climate change. So many of the solutions to all three of those problems overlap. Use less fuel, particularly if it originates from Russia. Travel less. Don't take planes. At the moment, a lot of airlines are restricted in where they can go and so on. Just generally consume less, which you're going to be obliged to do with rising prices anyway. Think about your actions and the consequences of your actions in every sphere of your life, and so on and so forth. So now that we're being forced into making a lot of those decisions through the our efforts to sanction the Russian economy, it's going to have a kind of some sort of positive results in terms of slowing down climate change. I mean, just as COVID did, emissions dropped dramatically during lockdown. It wasn't a good way to go about achieving that, but there we are. It still had that effect. So that was something I wanted to say in addition to what I did say in the previous video. But that particular video really did provoke some extreme reactions from certain people who had never commented on any of my videos before. And I do wonder, I know I've said this before, but I do wonder sometimes whether A lot of subscriptions that I have and other channels have out there are actually genuine people. um, I'm in a bit of a sort of catch-22 situation because my channel isn't a wargaming channel, but I am a wargamer, and a lot of my content is wargaming related. So consequently, a lot of my audience, and my subscribers are wargamers, and they've subscribed to my channel because for my wargaming content. But I just have to reiterate that there is a lot of wargaming content on my channel, but my channel isn't a wargaming channel. And I feel perfectly free to put up videos on any topic I want, and to be instructed not to. It's just ludicrous. Go get stuffed is basically my answer to that. But obviously a lot of wargamers that are wargaming channels that are specifically wargaming have also been voicing their opinions on the Ukraine. And I did wonder, I've looked back since at the comments that have been left on their channels, and they don't seem to have had any of the issues that I've had. And I wonder whether they are doing what I'm doing and just deleting the comments and muting them, or whether they haven't been bothered by them. So maybe if you are one of those channels that's put out a I stand with Ukraine video, whether you have experienced that or not. I just find it quite extraordinary. And it's just basically it's that whole issue of people's concept of reality, that my immediate reality is the damage in my garden and so on, but my much sort of broader reach reality is my understanding of what's going on in the world. But some people just don't seem to have. I've been very dismayed by the number of people who haven't commented on the situation in the Ukraine, and just seem to want to hide their head in the sand. To me, they have even less freedom of expression than that brave Russian news reader or news editor who jumped in front of the camera in Russia. She has far more to lose than you do. So what is it that you're afraid of? What is it that's silencing you? Just the fact that you might upset some of your audience and lose a tiny element of your subscription levels, or is it, that you actually believe, some other kind of alternate reality, which is definitely seems to be the case. They've had people commenting that Putin is, justified in his war, this kind of thing. Are you keeping silent for that reason? It's quite remarkable. But a couple of the comments I had were, the reason I say I'm not sure whether they were actually genuine people or not is that I'm convinced that there are a lot of bogus, false-fronted subscribers out there because of the tactic that not just Russians have. It's not a question of paranoia, but that it is a tactic to create a channel with a bogus identity in order to give that bogus identity a profile on the internet, which can then be used to boost viewing levels, say, so that advertising revenue increases. I mean, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen on on channels that have much larger viewers than we do. But that's certainly, I'm sure that is a tactic. But then you have this political inference of people, not people, but these artificially created channels jumping in and becoming active at times of political unrest, such as an election, Brexit, that kind of thing, and just provoking kind of argument and throwing kind of weird opinions into the mix and muddying the water and so on. So there is a kind of sinister element behind their existence. But yeah, some of the comments I got were so incoherent that I could almost believe they had been constructed by an artificial intelligence. They didn't kind of, their logic didn't make sense. And, there were arguments against, against criticizing Putin's actions, that just didn't add up. Comparing Putin's invasion of the Ukraine to IRA atrocities in Northern Ireland, and saying that the reaction to them hasn't been as great as it is to Putin's invasion. Well, of course it hasn't. But to give you another idea of kind of things been happening on my channel since that last one went up, I always liked. I always like to reply to comments, because I think it's polite. People have taken the bother to comment on my videos, and normally I will comment back. What I've started doing of late is that if they make a comment, even if it's well articulated, and most of the comments I'm getting at the moment aren't, but if the comment is well articulated but it differs from my own opinion, I'm not going to have a discussion about that by replying to the comment, because that person who comments with such sort of strong, opposite opinion to mine is perfectly free to make those comments in his own videos or her own videos on their own channel. So I don't want my channel is my own, and I don't want it to be used as a platform for other people's opinions, especially if they are extreme ones. So that actually isn't the case with these comments I've been getting lately, because they are inarticulate, as I say. So I can just delete them, and in that case mute the commenters so that I never hear from them again, and my audience don't hear their extreme opinions either. But to give you an idea of the kind of what's sort of happened, is that on a completely mundane, uncontroversial video that I put up a couple of months ago now of a ship passing through, passing out the River Tamar into Plymouth Sound down here. I put that up in my naval kind of playlist, and someone commented on it, and again, it was completely mysterious comment. It wasn't unpleasant or anything like that, but it was almost like it had been written in code, and it said something along the lines of the grey funnel line has turned to green. It was almost like a coded message or something like that. I just could not make it out at all. And I was wondering how to reply to it. And then I just sort of got a little bit suspicious. So I thought I would look and see if the commenter had. Again, it was a commenter that I'd never heard of before. He doesn't subscribe to my channel, and couldn't work out what he was getting at. Whether he was a little bit drunk at the time he made the comment or something. I don't know. So I looked up his own channel, and he does indeed have his own channel with videos on it. So there was one where he was facing the camera. So thought I would click on that and try and get an impression of who he was and what he was about. And he actually, on this video, he was saying that the Russians aren't bombing Ukraine. It's the Ukrainians who are bombing their own cities. I didn't listen any further than that, but I suddenly realised that maybe he was trying to draw me into an interchange on, and he would suddenly come out with some kind of weird and wacky remark like that, in the discussion. So I immediately muted him. But it's making me feel kind of quite paranoid in my own right. That I've no idea. People's idea of YouTube land and the world in general and what they kind of get on, through their various media that they watch, just seems to me completely unsettling and bizarre. There are even, as I say, I'm very not unhappy, upset, but very kind of confused and disappointed by so many people not wanting to speak out. But there've been a number of channels that have even said that they're not going to discuss it. And I just don't understand. If you're not going to discuss it, just don't discuss it. Don't actively say I'm not going to discuss it, because it makes it even worse. And we do, all our channels, YouTube still has a reach in Russia. So even if one person in Russia watches your video and sees what your attitude is, it might make them kind of reconsider. I mean, it's got nothing on the scale of Arnold Schwarzenegger's video that he put out, which has had a massive kind of following in Russia, and a lot of people have seen that video. It's never going to be on that scale, obviously, but just one person seeing it, could make a difference. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. Just I'd be interested to hear from other channels who are being a little bit vocal about this, whether they've experienced something similar to me. It's just very strange. But the other thing that I was thinking of as well is, just wanted to show you. I am a Russophile. I'm not Russophobic in any way. I've always been fascinated by Russian history and culture, and I kind of even during the Cold War, I was a lot more sympathetic to Russia's stance. What strikes me now about Putin's Russia is that it's a completely sort of barren landscape in terms of political ideology. It's just all the kind of elements of Soviet ideology, whether you agreed with it or not, have been stripped out of it and replaced by this sort of neo-Nazi 1984 kind of Big Brother state, that's simply there like a gangster mafia kind of state, just there for the simple, reason to survive. There is nothing that seems to be motivating the general population, which used to be the case. There were a lot of people who were convinced, socialists and communists, and it gave them something to cling to. during the dark days of, you know, Stalinism and so on. But now that's just been, all that's been completely removed, and they have nothing, you know, nothing to believe in other than, you know, the cult of kind of Putin as a god almost. But as I say, I've long been a lover of Russia and so on, and I learnt Russian many years ago. This book was a reprint of, and it came out in 1972, and taught myself Russian mainly using this book. But a friend of mine was thumbing through it at the time, and he came across a translation that you were required to do, translating to Russian, number 2. Taking everything into consideration, I think the government is right. And he found that hilarious because it was a perfectly, it was a very useful phrase for Russians to have at that time. And unfortunately, it appears now as well. I'll just read to you in case you want to remember it. If the Russians get this far, then it might come in handy for you. So it's Принимая всё во внимание, я считаю, что правительство право. There you are. So just say правительство право wherever you go if you're asked your opinion in Russia, and that will keep you out of prison. Yeah, I think I'll stop there. Whittled on for quite a while, and as I say, just want to make this video to antagonise that rather unpleasant element of my audience who still seem to watch my videos. I've no idea why, but I really wish you wouldn't. And that's it. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.